Hey folks, welcome to Build at Home once again from my home in Bushwick, Brooklyn. This is Ricky Camilleri. I'm joined right now by the great, the legendary Don Cheadle.
Stop. Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
uh, we're going to talk all about his show Black Monday, but as I said, legendary. I'm such a huge fan of your work. I'm going to have to dip into some of my favorite hits of yours, Don, in this quick talk that we have. But before we get started, I do want to say that we say this at the beginning of all these interviews, and that is that 505 million school lunches have been missed so far at schools across the country due to the closures because of the coronavirus outbreak. If you are interested, if you can, if you have anything to spare and you want to donate to try to get these kids some of the meals that they need, please go to nokidhungry.org. On that note, Don, thank you so much for being here. For making what has been a wonderful light during the midst of this terrible time with Black Monday. I have to ask, what are you doing during quarantine? How are you entertaining yourself? How are you keeping sane right now?
Well, I feel like the most important thing to do during times like this is try to keep as much routine as you can and, not to try to restructure everything. So I'm continuing to procrastinate on all of the work that I have to do. Uh, haven't moved anything forward. I'm still acting like, I'm working 7 to 14 hours a day. No, I mean, I'm actually knocking off a lot of things and getting into some other things. I'm getting a lot more reading in. I have, a script that there's constant, deadline. The Damocles sword is over my head the whole time. And really happy that I'm cohabitating with, somebody that I'm happy to be with, because I can't imagine what it would be like for people trapped with people they really don't want to be trapped with right now.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. Are you outside of that script? Are you reading something particularly special right now that you're feeling good about, or watching anything?
The mostly I'm reading things that are for work.
Got it.
So, and without them being completely done yet, I don't really talk about them
Of
yet. I have
course.
it like a jinx thing. But I'm catching up on shows that I haven't like caught up on. Like I, finally watched Better Call Saul, which I can't believe
Oh
I
yeah.
missed the first time around. It's so good. Um, and my wife, I can't tell if it's a good thing or a bad thing, got me to watch Blind Love with her. Um,
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
is it?
You
Is
need to
it?
know. Like you,
I
I, I,
guess
I
you're right.
watched
I
it and
guess
I
you
felt
need
like,
to know.
oh, I need to know that this exists, and yeah,
So when people refer to it, you can be like, "Oh, that crazy shit." Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I have to tell you, I love Black Monday so much. Going back to its first season, I was telling you this before we even started. It is one of the rare shows that can do total self-referential silliness while at the same time track a story that you actually care about seeing the outcome of. It reminds me in a way sometimes of Wet Hot American Summer, but
Mm,
I actually care about where it's going. Whereas Wet Hot American Summer, I'm just in for the banana peel. I'm not in to see what happens with these characters. Black Monday,
right.
I want to know what happens to Mo and Dawn and everybody else.
Yeah.
When you first started the show, how did they pitch it to you, and were they clear about the tone right away?
Well, when it was first pitched to me, actually, David Nevins, head of Showtime, called me and kind of said, "I've got this show. It's kind of crazy. It's really a full-on comedy. Not, House of Lies was a bit of a hybrid." He
Hmm.
goes, "This one to him was just like a full-out if a sitcom were on cable." And he goes, "I kind of want to achieve that, but I don't know if this is right for you." But anyway, good talking to you. I was like, okay, great, good talking to you, David.
He
And
he
then
knew he knew what he was doing there, though, didn't he? Are you the type of person who's like, not for me? I can do that.
no, I was the kind of
Oh,
person that was
okay.
like, okay, well, let me know if there's something that's for me. I'm gonna go over here and do this. And then he called me a little later. He's like, I've been thinking about it, and I think now, actually, I think it is. Maybe it is for you. I'm gonna send you the script. Check it out and tell me what you think. Because he didn't even send me the script at first. So then he sent me the script, and I read it, and it just made me laugh from the first page to the last page. And similarly, I was very intrigued by who these characters were and where they were headed. And the setup was amazing, and the twist at the end was amazing. And I was like, what is this going to be? And then I met with Jordan and David, our showrunners and creators of the show, and they kind of told me what they were going to attempt to pull off um, over the season, which is keep this mystery alive, this who done it, over the course of these 10 episodes, and really do something that none of us had seen before, which is do a sitcom mystery, straight up adult comedy on cable. And so I was down for that. And then, Seth and Evan being the producers behind it, and them directing the pilot, everything was just, pointed toward yes. And then, of course, when we got the cast that we got, it's amazing with Regina and Andrew and Paul, and just, Yasser, Horatio, Eugene at the beginning. Eugene Levy was in the beginning, and not Eugene Levy, sorry. Eugene Fudero at the beginning. And it was just, everything was just good.
Yeah, one of the most incredible casts on television right now. I think both for people who just like TV and movies, and for true comedy nerds like myself who are like, that guy's on a Showtime show? That's amazing that they did that.
Yeah, it was, and Casey Wilson too. I didn't want to forget her name. Yeah, I think everybody, and I think that's why that you can watch a show that's crazy like that and still care about these people, because there are real people behind these characters, and we have, I think, with the ensemble, the ability to go a lot of places. So we can play downbeats and they can be very believable, and then a second later it can be insane, and I don't think you lose the plot.
Yeah, how do you do? I mean, a good example I think is in the second season where you're getting your makeover and you're talking about your robot and like your robot needing a tux too. I love that bit. It's so over the top, but it's almost like you underplay it. You know that it's over the top on the writing, and that to make it work within this, it seems like you have to underplay it as much as possible. Is that kind of the MO when it comes to that was not an intentional pun, but when it comes to Mo and when it comes to the performance?
And we try to find as many of those as we can. So you've seen the season. We drop any of those. So anytime you want to put an MO in, we're fine. But yeah, that is a part of it, is trying to, and I think that's why it works, right? And I think that's why any comedy that works is because you see these characters committing more energy than is necessary to things, and other times completely not applying enough energy and enough attention to what they're dealing with. So it's always being, the incongruent nature of what's happening, I think is what the tone is of the show. The tone of the show is incongruency, and the tone of the show is things consistently not coming together, and then coming together in a way that you couldn't have anticipated, but makes illogical sense when it kind of happens. Like you said, like, of course Mo wants a suit for his robot. That's his boy. Why would he want to not have a suit for his robot? It's his robot.
One of the things that I love about season 2 is that there's this sort of, the phrase hindsight is 2020, and it's almost like hindsight is more absurd than it was when we were living it. And there's this idea of things that are referenced in this, which is the banking regulations that Andrew's character is lobbying to get taken away, which we know essentially devastated the country years later, and also the private prison practices, which were really booming in the 80s, that Ken Marino's character is talking about, as well as how white-collar criminals, maybe not as exaggerated as is in the show, but do go to have like a different prison experience than people of color who go to prison for drug offenses of some kind. What is it like to sort of explore those ideas through a completely absurdist lens?
Well, I think that's always the point of what we're trying to do. And I know that in the writer's room, that's always sort of the true north for the writers, and for the sort of themes of all of these shows, and the theme of the season in general and the show in general, which is, a lot of it is, look at how far we haven't come, and to shine a light on that through the things like you mentioned, banking regulations, the workplace for women, the PC, the just for men, that they're the downtrodden, put upon class in that situation.
What is Yasser's line? It's going to be just corpses if you don't get out of here. Just four corpses.
It's going to be just 4 corpses if you guys don't get out of here before Don gets in here. Yeah. And just 4 men, the number 4. So I think they're really smart at how they send up all of this stuff that was just so serious back then, and how we see how cyclical all of these things are. We're coming back around to looking at the repercussions of deregulation and the haves always having and the have-nots
Mhm.
always trying to figure out how to get in there. And we deal with a lot of that stuff through that prism, through that lens of the absurdist comedy, because it was so serious back then. The things that we took so serious back then, the hair, the clothes, the music, that now you kind of get some perspective on it and you're like, really?
Yeah, it's pure excess all around.
That's the bottom line. The more is the more.
Yeah, you're phenomenal at comedy, whether it's witty banter or even sort of physical comedy. Did you start wanting to be a comedic actor? Because I look back at some of your early parts, and like someone like Mouse, there is a sense, like, it's a very serious character, but there is a sense of play and comedy that comes across in that performance, where it seems like you're looking for a way to find humor in a serious character.
Yeah, I think I'm always trying to do both, right? I think if it's a very dramatic and a very serious setting, you're trying to find the comedy in it. You're trying to find how to, skewer that and make the whole experience as kind of elastic as you can, and really push, if you can, the boundaries of the character. How far can he go in both of these directions?
Mm.
Um, but I came up doing everything because I came up, a theater baby, and I went to Cal Arts, and we did everything. I did 25 or 30 plays by the time that I graduated from Cal Arts. And then before I was ever acting in the business out here, I was continuing to do theater, all over the country, and playing many, many different roles. So to me, I was always excited to have it be as varied as it could be. Um, and a part of that is trying to find within the characters those beats. It's like, when can this murderer be funny, and when can this hilarious guy destroy you emotionally, and when can how elastic can these characters be? That's always what I've selfishly wanted to try to figure out.
One of the hardest things to do with Mo must be the moments where you have to make him emotionally, you have to make the audience respond to him on an emotional level, not just humoring him, laughing at him, or hoping that he, is able to pull off some sort of scheme, but a moment where he is, leaving a bag of money for his family who he's leaving
Hmm.
behind. How do you find those moments? Because we do have to watch Mo be essentially a dirtbag for 80%,
Yeah,
90% of the story.
yeah. I don't. I mean, it's attributable to the writing, right? It's attributable to the direction. It's attributable to everybody understanding that that's what's required in that moment to make it so that we can get to the next moment and understand what's happening. And under all of it, I think Mo is a very sad, unfulfilled human with a big hole that'll probably never be filled by anything, because of his lack of self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
And and that, again, I think that you can be super super funny if you're super super grounded. If there's no reality under it, if there's no ballast, then it's just sort of like the characters they're nothing. It's just fluff. It doesn't mean anything. But if these guys are really sort of coming, for me it seems, maybe I'm just blowing smoke, but it feels like if they're really coming from a place that, whether it's expressly, expressed moment to moment, you can feel like that's a real human being, then I think there's nothing you can hold on to. But when you're really trying to figure out where they came from, and we have opportunities to dip into that with all of these shows, um, then they become really interesting. Like Blair talking about the fact that his dad had a heart attack beating him. It's like it's like that's how his dad died. He literally beat him to death, but his dad died while he was beating him. It's just like absurd, ridiculous shit, but it makes me crack up because it's so dark.
Yeah. I have one Corona buddy that I'm allowed to hang out with during this, because
Nice.
we were friends before this, and we decided that we could hang out. And she had never seen Boogie Nights, and we were watching Boogie Nights, and she was like, "Wow, was this Don Cheadle's like breakthrough role?" And I was like, "Are you kidding? Have you not seen Colors? Have you not seen Devil in a Blue Dress?" So I'm curious
Hilarious.
for you, like, did Boogie Nights feel like your breakthrough role, or was Mouse or even Colors what may have felt like that? If it ever feels like that?
Well, there you go. I think that's what you've hit, is that for most actors, the breakthrough is only like, whew, now am I going to get hired again? You know, you never really feel like you've got it. You always feel like you're going to get discovered and people are going to be like, he sucks. Why would I ever watch that person? We always have this imposter syndrome, I think. And always are waiting for somebody to tap us on the shoulder and go, okay, that's it. We're done. You know, the business retires you. You don't retire from the business, kind of a thing. So I was on picket fences for 3 years.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was kind of ready to be off of it. And I didn't want to keep doing, you know, the schedule for TV. I was 12th man of the call sheet, which basically meant you just sit in your trailer and if we get to you, we get to you. And I was always sort of, you know, I was the heart of the piece, which I had no interest in being. It's like, I want to be the balls of the piece. I quit that show. The writers wrote me off. Thankfully, they let me go. And then I did Devil in a Blue Dress. And then that next year, I think I did 4 or 5 movies that year. And Boogie Nights was one of them. It's Boogie Nights and Rosewood. And,
That's right.
Yeah, I think there were like 4 or 5 that year. I think that was 90. My kid had just been born, so that was 94, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So that was just like a huge feast year. And then the next year, I don't think I really did much, but all those movies were coming out. So it's you know, it's weird timing because we do these movies and then you wait 6 or 7 months and then they kind of all come out and it looks like, wow, what a year he's had. I was like, that was last year. This year sucks. I haven't worked this year. You know, I'm waiting to get a job this year. So it's always fits and starts. It's always feast or famine for us. We never feel like, some of us do, and we know who those 7 people are who are like, oh no, I'm good. But for the most of us, we're always kind of going like, when do I get off the hamster wheel? When does the hustle stop? And I've always been very selective and pretty choosy about what I've done. So I've had big breaks where I haven't done stuff because just nothing came across that I was excited about.
Is that hard to maintain, being selective?
Well, I don't think there's a ton. I mean, there's not a ton of great stuff. There's more now, I think, especially because of the streamers and what's happened in the cable space. There's so much more that's out there, and we've really, it's really shown that there was a lot of talent that just wasn't able to break through. So I feel like a lot of that is the proliferation of that is really, given rise to a lot of really great work. But when I was coming up, for movies, they were writing movies for 5 or 6 people kind of, and you were lucky if you got a shot, and if you were a Black dude in the movie, often that part wasn't the part you wanted to take. And I didn't ever just want to take a job just because I needed some money. I'd rather go, do a play or do something that I could really feel like, okay, I know why I'm spending all of this time away from my wife and kids, because it's some work I can feel good about. But it was a very, and to some degree still is a careful navigation when you're trying to pick the things that you want to spend that much time doing, because the great ones are few and far between. And that from being, an audience member, that the great ones are few and far between. So I feel very, very fortunate that I've been able to work with really good people and pieces that I really feel good about and can look back and go, oh, those were good.
Yeah, I feel like you must have known that you didn't have imposter syndrome, or you weren't an imposter when you were on the set of Boogie Nights and you did that hip thing while you were listening to country music. And you said, go ahead and move with it. Like the crew must have fallen down laughing at how silly that was.
Well, that's really funny because that movie, so Carl Franklin, who directed Devil in a Blue Dress, said, hey, you need to meet this kid who's getting ready to do this movie, Boogie Nights. He's going to be big. He's really smart. You should meet him. And so I met Paul, I think at, not Ed DeBevick's, but one of those like deli spots in the Valley, because that's where he hangs out. And I couldn't tell from the script what the movie was because it was written very technically. It was maybe 170 pages long, and it had all of the camera moves in it and ramping to different speeds and whip pants and all this stuff. It was just a very uncommon sort of a script to read. that felt much more like something that he would be giving to his camera crew and the people that were going to, rather than just a narrative. And I couldn't really see through it. And I wasn't sure of what his tone was going to be, because when he was like, this is a movie about the porn industry, I was like, well, my parents are still alive, so I don't know how much I can do in this thing anyway. But it became pretty clear when we were all on the set that Paul really knew. I loved Hard Eight, but it was a much bigger thing to jump into. But it became evident on the set that he knew something more than any of us knew about what this was going to be. The total of its parts was going to be a lot more than we were experiencing day to day, and then it turned out to be what it was. He said when I first met with him, he's like, well, this movie's going to be an instant classic. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. So you're bad if you don't want to do it. You'll regret not saying yes. So you should just say yes. It's like, I've never quite met anybody like you before.
Does that tempt you when you meet a young director and they say that? Or are you like, okay, come, we'll see?
I mean, it's never happened again. It's never happened before or since. Paul is sui generis. So I was like, okay. Yeah. And he a couple of times he called me up, like after Punch Drunk, he called me up. He's like, "Do you see Punch Drunk?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm going to check it out." He goes, "Yeah, you need to, because it's an instant classic." I was like, "Another instant classic, Paul?" He's like, "Yeah, another instant classic." Said,
fair enough. I mean, fair enough, right? Like I don't know if he's been wrong yet.
His batting average has been damn good.
But I think that's such a great example of when we really first get to see you doing comedy. I mean, it is within the context of a somewhat serious movie, but Boogie Nights, the first half is kind of a comedy in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Yeah.
And your moment with the coffee cup, shaking your hips to country music and telling some stranger to move with it is all out of your seat funny. And I feel like that translates so well into Black Monday. I mean, it's a huge leap in terms of the span of your career, but it's kind of all there as a viewer for me, starting with that,
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I think that was an improv, which was very rare. Paul didn't really like too many improvs in the movie. There was another time when Melora Walters' character, I forget what her name was in the movie, my girl. But there's the moment when we first sort of get together, and I'm sitting at that table with that Earth, Wind, and Fire wig on and the beads and the big white thing. And, so we're sitting there and Paul goes, okay, so for this shot, I just want you to just like nothing. I just want nothing to be coming out of Buck, just nothing. And I was like, okay. So we did it, and he, cut, comes over, he goes, well, you were kind of doing nothing. I just want nothing. Like, don't do nothing, just be nothing. I was like, be nothing? He's like, yeah. So he was like, let me adjust the lighting. So he walked off, and I'm sitting there going, be nothing? What is this dude talking about? What does he mean, be nothing? And he walks over, he's like, okay, I got it, cool, thanks. Moving on. So he shot me sitting there trying to figure out what he meant. It was like he threw a Japanese koan in my brain, like to disrupt my thinking. It's like, you sneaky little bastard. So, he
is that when she walks over? When she walks over and we like kind of push in, and he's just sort of, and you're just sitting there like spaced out.
And he's just sitting there, and she looks over to me, and Buck's just sitting at the table. That was that moment in the movie. That was me trying to figure out what Paul meant.
Do you ever have moments like that with Black Monday where you really question or have to figure out the best way to play something that is so silly within the context of the story, or maybe so sincere and emotional within the context of a silly story?
I think it just at this point with this character and these guys in these circumstances, it just feels like sometimes the best method is just to go for it and not to get too analytical and try and get in my head too much about what it is. Just really trust the world that has been set up, and that, David and Jordan have an idea of where it's headed, and to just fully commit to what that is. And, we discover many times on the day, like, oh, okay, we got to obviously adjust it a little bit. We've got to attenuate things a little bit. It's not quite that. And maybe we got to pull this back, and maybe we got to push this. So it's always, tweaking it while we're going. But they've created the overarching, thing that they've created is such of its own world that you kind of have to really lean in and just commit to that. And I think then things just pop up. And we're also very fortunate that everybody in the set can improv, and
Right.
everybody in this set, feels comfortable doing that. And David and Jordan, to their credit, are not precious about their words, and they're not precious about any of that stuff. And the other writers too, they're like, yeah, if you can beat it, beat it. Best answer wins. Let's go.
I probably have to let you go soon, but I'd be remiss to not ask you just generally what it's like working with Regina, who I think, for my money, is one of the most charismatic, funniest, talented actresses there is right now.
Oh, she's great. I love working with Regina, and that's the one casting piece I'll pat myself on the back for.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
We were trying to figure out who this woman was going to be, and I had seen her present an award, not even a performance of hers in anything. I had seen her on stage with Sanaa Lathan, I think, presenting an award at something, and they were just going back and forth. They were just having a good time, and there was just something about her that I was like, she can kill this part. And I called her and said, would you consider it? And she read the script, and she was like, I'm in. I love it. And it was we were just so fortunate that she said yes, and that we got her to come along, because absolutely she is a powerhouse and hilarious and poignant and can play all of those beats, and an improv's great. Just the whole package. She's absolutely, the star of the show for me.
And I think you absolutely captured the fact that you just saw her in an award show presenting. She is, no matter how much work she is actually probably doing, she is effortlessly watchable. She is just one of those people.
100%. And that's the best word. It's effortless. She's just always available, and her instincts are very attuned, and she can just jump into anything. And again, I think that's the same that goes for Andrew, and it goes for Casey, and all of the cast. We can take it anywhere. I mean, we feel like we are not afraid to go anywhere. And I think that it's fun for the writers to try to figure out if they can push us into places that, how far can we push these guys? And that's what makes it fun for us to show up to work every day, is that there's always some, challenge that's in front of us that, we're going to try to figure out how to get ourselves out of a corner.
Well, Don, I love Black Monday so much. I'm excited to see what happens the rest of this season. It is on Showtime on Sunday nights, correct?
Yes, sir.
Showtime Sunday nights. And if you haven't caught up with it, catch up with it on Amazon or any of the other streaming networks on the Showtime streaming network. It is, for my money, the funniest show on television. And I'm so happy to have gotten the chance to talk to you about it, Don. Good to talk to you. I'm glad you're healthy and safe.
Thank you very much. You do the same thing. Stay inside with your COVID buddy.
Okay, cool. Take care, Don.
All right, be easy.
Later.